God is doing something. God is really doing something here, I believe, in our hearts, in our minds, and things that are going on. Maybe he's breaking the ground. I'm not sure, but I really believe that God is doing something here differently, and hopefully you do too, and hopefully you feel it. Hopefully you know what's happening, or maybe you don't know what's happening, but hopefully you feel what God is trying to do here. I think he's really trying to get us to our eyes and our ears more open. And so he brought across, in the beginning here, it says, you have an enemy. And it's not physical, right? The Bible tells us we don't fight against flesh and blood. And it says in my picture here, it says the enemy always fights the hardest when he knows God has something great in store. And I believe that, and I've talked about that, and hopefully you remember that, most of the time, there is something great in store, I believe, here at Liberty. I mean, being almost 200 years old, and the people that have come before us, and their prayers that have come before us, and they saturate the ground. They're here, and I believe there's been many saints that have prayed for an awesome move of God, and I think we're getting closer and closer to that. And so the enemy's not going to like that. He's going to do things to come against us. He's going to do things to stop us. He's going to try to get in our ways, right? Or try to get in our way. And things that are happening, illness, sickness, just kind of things that we're going to have to move through and push through. Can you move to the next? Yeah, there you go. So in the beginning, the subtle strategy of the enemy was in the garden. In 2 Corinthians 11:3, where she was beguiled by the serpent. It says, Paul says, but I fear that somehow your pure and undivided devotion to Christ will be corrupted just as Eve was deceived by the cunning ways of the serpent. And for that scripture, and if we move on, move to the next one. The one thing that I can't stand in the world is deception and deceit. And I spent 20-some years in sales, so, I got accused of that many times. But I can tell you, I can stand here with clean hands that I never lied to anyone. I never tried to lie to someone just to make a sale, just to make money or do anything like that. I always wanted to be honest and to let people know, if this fits your needs, great, that's great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. I'm not upset. I'm a big boy. I can take no. And so I hate deception and deceit, and I believe that God does too. And in this, when we were talking about when the serpent was talking to Eve, the root word of that, there on the left side, if you see it, it says the nakash. And nakash is the Hebrew word for the serpent. It says commonly translated as snake. This word carries semantic depth. That's some rich words there. It's derived from a root that can mean to whisper, to enchant, or to divine. So it says it suggests more than a reptile and things. So this is the one thing I don't think that we understand all the time, is that the enemy has power. The enemy has power to enchant us, and it whispers in our ear, and it's stronger than us. It knows everything about us. It knows what our needs and our wants and our desires and those things, and it can whisper and it can enchant us. And that's not fair, is it? That's not fair, because they can know those things and come and whisper in our ears and try to drag us away from the Lord. And so that would push us even more to listen to the Lord. And on the other side, it talks about the deception is the act of intentionally misleading someone by causing them to believe something that is not true, providing false information, omitting important details to create a false impression. So that happens a lot. Just watch the news, things that are going on in the world. A lot of these things happen. And like I was saying, in my profession of sales and things, there were a lot of people that I knew that would do that. Take out, this little detail here, this little detail here. Oh, no, that'll be fine. Knowing that it won't be fine, because after that is done, they're gone. They don't have to deal with them anymore, right? So in the garden, when the enemy first came against them, then the other star, enchant means to attract or delight someone as if by magic, often evoking strong sense of admiration and fascination. So it can also refer to influencing someone through charms or spells. And that's how the enemy comes after us. That's how he gets us, is through these ways of talking and the way that it comes. And if we can move to the next one. So subterfuge, right? It's a big word meaning deception used to achieve an end. And I think a lot of us have to be careful in the ways when things change and when things happening, when we hold on, when we're holding on to something or we're holding on to the way we've always done it, when we hold on to I don't know. It's hard to let go and not know what might happen. What if God does something? What if God really does this? What if my life changes? What if I have to do something different? Paul warned the church in Corinth that deception is not always loud, it's often subtle, and that the enemy doesn't always attack with force. He whispers, distracts, and distorts. So God gave us the truth, right? He told us that Christ is Lord and that through Jesus we receive the salvation. And that's what we put everything on, that in the resurrection. So that is our firm foundation. And then to all these other things that come around and happen, that's where the devil comes in. It says, just like Eve, we were vulnerable when we forget who God is and who we are in him. The enemy's primary battle is in our minds, and his goal is to erode our trust in God and shift our focus from devotion to distraction. So in Genesis 3 and 3 through 5, it says, the serpent was the shrewdest of all, mine is cutting off there, of the wild animals and God had made. One day he asked the woman, did God really say you must not eat from the fruit of the trees of the garden? And of course, God didn't say that, right? This is him distracting. This is him asking her, did he really say that? And she said, of course we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden. It's only the fruit from the tree in the middle of the garden that we're not allowed to eat. God said you must not eat or even touch it. If you do, you will die. And then they couldn't even touch it, right? I didn't really think about that till we're doing that. They weren't even supposed to touch it. But it was very pretty, and they were looking at it. And then the devil is there, and the enemy is there doing his whispering and talking and enchanting and saying, but look how pretty it is. Did God really say that? Is that what you really heard? And he says, you won't die. The serpent replied to the woman, God knows that your eyes will be opened as soon as you eat it, and you'll be like God, knowing both good and evil. And if you can move to the next one, please. So the tactics of the enemy or his lies, what he was saying, you're not good enough, God doesn't care. If he cared, he would let you eat of that so you could be like him. So how many of us, I think, would make the choice that if we could not know or we could go back and not know the difference between good or evil, I think that would be, a lot of us may like that. To be like they were. He causes fear, he amplifies uncertainty to paralyze our faith, and he isolates us from community, truth, and purpose. So, in the garden, when Eve, in the initial, when we go way back to the very beginning, when the enemy is trying to take the people away from God, there had to be a big reason why he wanted all of that, right? He wanted it for himself. He wanted to annihilate the people. He wanted Adam and Eve to be out of the way. And so as he comes in and he whispers and he enchants and he lies, and he tells them, hey, did God really say that? So when it comes to the point when we see something, we see it's pretty and it's nice, and we shouldn't touch it. We shouldn't go there. We shouldn't gossip. We shouldn't talk about this. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't get involved in these things. But it looks nice and it looks pretty. And so, did God really say that? And then you move into it, then that's when the snare of the enemy attacks. And in our next slide there, And we're in John 8:43 through 44. It says, "Why can't you understand what I am saying? It's because you can't even hear me. For you, the children of your father and the devil, and you love to do evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning, and he has always hated the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies." So this isn't for you. This isn't that. Don't think I'm trying to tell you this is what you guys are. It's not. It's just when Jesus was talking to these people, and he was saying, he was telling them that he was a murderer and a truth from the beginning. And I had to think about that. I mean, as a murderer, and he was, right? That's what happened. He beguiled them into tasting and looking and touching the fruit, and that killed them, but they didn't know it right away. And again, that's how the devil works with us, is that little things happen, and they catch on, and they take off, and we're killed because we listened to that, and we didn't believe what God had said. And so, moving on to the next one, God was telling us to stay alert. In 1 Peter 5:8 through 9, he says, "Stay alert and watch out for your enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Stand firm against him and be strong in your faith." And can we move to the next one real quick? So in our response to stay alert and watch out for the enemy as he prowls around, is in John 4:10. It says, "Get out of here, Satan," Jesus told him. "For the scriptures say you must worship the Lord your God and serve only him," which goes back into Deuteronomy. So our response to the things that are going on and that are happening, and I'm guessing that a lot of people are hearing these things or feeling these things, or something's coming up and you're just not sure what's happening. God is telling us to tell the devil, we have the authority to get out of here. This is when Jesus was being tempted by the devil. This is when he was fasted 40 days. I couldn't imagine going 40 days without food and all these other things. And the devil's there just tempting him with all of these things that are coming through, like turning the rocks into bread, jumping down, and that if you'll just worship me, I'll give you all of this. But Jesus told them, you must worship the Lord your God only and serve him. And the way we do that is we delve into the scripture, we talk more, we worship more, we get in there and find out what God really has for us. And the reason all of this seems to be like I believe that seems to be a reminder, just a refresher course of what God is saying from the beginning and what we're going on, is because in the beginning, like I was saying and like I've said many times, is that God has something for us, and he needs us to stay on track. And sometimes you have to go back to the basics. Sports references, right? You go back, oh man, went right out of my head. But you go back to the beginning. You work on the small details. You keep going. You keep doing the same things over and over and over. You keep following God. We keep trusting God, because the enemy likes to worm his way into our lives, and he likes to get us feuding with one another. He likes to get us talking about one another. Well, what about this one? And what about that one? And what's happening and what's going on? And God is saying, forget about that. You all are important to me. I love every one of you. I need every one of you to do what I've called you to do. We as a family and as a church need to grow closer together, and we need to know each other better. The Church of Acts and the things that they did, they got to know each other. They served their community. They sold their properties and things, and they brought in to help the needy and the poor. And they all became family and grew